As of November 2023 के लास्ट रिपोर्ट तक इक्विटी रिसर्च एनालिस्ट claimed that this stock will touch 770 or 800 by end of 2024 with a long-term growth of 16%. As of end of January 2024, it is still hovering around 500. Is there something that can kickstart the growth of this healthcare proxy? तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा एक unbiased coverage just based on facts on the leading plastic labware company Tarsons Product Limited. My name is Ashish Thomas. I am an IIM graduate and a management consultant. My daily job is to evaluate firms, understand their risks, and anticipate market moves. And I thought, why not apply all of that to the stock market? So here we are, and let's jump straight in. Alright, with that, here's the agenda for our session. Any good analysis needs to begin with an understanding of the industry. What is the market size, the growth rate, the emerging trends, the key players. From there, we are going to look at what does the company do. कोई competitive advantage है क्या? क्या इनके पास कोई एक solid long-term vision है? Are there some big news in the market? इसके बाद we need to understand its financials. इस कंपनी का रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ कैसा है, इज इट प्रॉफिटेबल, ये अपने लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कहाँ से करता है, अमंग्स अदर थिंग्स. वी देन मूव ऑन टू रिस्क बिकॉज एनी मार्केट इन्वेस्टमेंट हैज इट्स ओन रिस्क. सो डज इन्वेस्टिंग इन दिस कंपनी. लेट अस स्पेंड टाइम अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट कैन स्टॉप द बुलिश ग्रोथ ऑफ दिस फर्म. एंड फाइनली, नो मैटर द स्ट्रैटेजी, द विजन, द फाइनेंशियल, इज इट रियली प्राइस्ड राइट इन द मार्केट और इज इट टू एक्सपेंसिव एट द मोमेंट. With that preamble, let us dive in to understand the winds of change in the industry. When we say lab equipment, आप अपने स्कूल डेज में जाइए, वो साइंस लैब, टेस्ट ट्यूब, बीकर्स, पिपेट, सेंट्रीफ्यूज मशीन, this is the industry that we are talking about. This labware industry is expected to grow at 6% annually, or CAGR, or CAGR as we call it, almost touching $33 billion by 2028. Major reasons for this growth include aging population, high cases of chronic diseases like AIDS, TB, a renewed focus on wellness and testing, वो हमारे annual health checkups जो हम करते हैं. अब if you think about it, there are two main materials जिनसे ये बनते हैं, glass and plastic. तो इसमें जो plastic ware industry है is at 44% of the entire market and is expected to grow at 12% CAGR by 2028. When it does that, it will comprise of 60% of all the labware market, which means there's a huge growth area in this entire industry. अब ये शिफ्ट के भी 2-3 रीजंस हैं. ग्लास टू प्लास्टिक, एनहांस सेफ्टी है, ग्लास के कंपैरिजन में प्लास्टिक कम टूटता है, कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव है, मच चीपर, फाइनली लाइट वेट है, सो देयर इज एन ईज ऑफ हैंडलिंग. अगर मैं यही चीज इंडिया मार्केट में देखूं तो प्लास्टिक वेयर इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू ऑक्यूपाई 77% ऑफ ऑल लैबवेयर इक्विपमेंट्स बाय 2025. So India maybe there is a significant space for somebody to grow. Now if you were to think about who actually purchases these labware equipments, the first one is the academia and research, which are the largest purchasers of labware, closely followed by the pharmaceutical industry and then the diagnostic labs. Government views education sector as a strategic priority, so और भी academic and research institutions open होने वाले हैं. जो डायग्नोस्टिक सेक्टर है विद ऑल द वेलनेस टेस्टिंग एंड द इंश्योरेंस कवरेज, इट इज वन ऑफ द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग एट 13% CAGR. उसी लाइंस में लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड द प्रोडक्ट्स इन द मार्केट. PCR एंड सेल कल्चर इज द लार्जेस्ट प्रोडक्ट सेगमेंट गिवन द एडॉप्शन ऑफ द सिंगल यूज टेक्नोलॉजी, जो कोविड में काफी यूज हुआ था. एंड देन देयर इज एन इंक्रीज रिसर्च ऑन अदर डिजीजेस व्हिच हैव स्टार्टेड. Other growing markets are the liquid handling market, which is also seeing a huge growth due to genomics. And finally, if I were to look into the companies that operate in this market, Thermo Fisher and Eppendorf are the largest in the market. However, they are reliant on imports. Almost 70% of their products are coming through imports from their global facility. और दूसरी तरफ है the firms like Genaxi, which have outsourced their entire production on the job basis, which can result in timing, quality, or supply chain issues. Something that can happen. Our homeboy Tarsons has in-house manufacturing facilities, which are really hard to replicate in this market. With that, that's an industry roundup that we just saw. Let's move to our next section where we start to take a glance on what are some of the highlights of the firm that we are talking about. What are some of the moats or the competitive edge in this industry, right? Or for this company too. We'll then take a deep dive into the range of its products, followed by the published business strategy that it has. And finally, we'll look at some of the news that the firm has been making in the market. Merger acquisition हो गए, कोई नई factory खड़ी की है नहीं, any corporate action that has happened, all of that will be covered in this section. So let's begin with understanding Tarsons products. Tarsons is a very well-known brand for designing, developing and manufacturing labware products in its in-house facilities. उनके पास 300 plus product segments हैं जो वो अपने brand के अंदर बेचते हैं या तो white label करके बेचते हैं. For example, the Eppendorf company in US वो Tarsons के product खरीदते हैं और आगे बेचते हैं. 33% of the revenue comes from the international markets, predominantly in EU and US, which are all growing at 12% CAGR. Over the last 12 years, in fact, it has expanded over 30 times in the overseas division. From here, let's understand what truly gives Tarsons its competitive edge. One, it has its vertically integrated manufacturing facilities and an end-to-end ownership of the design and development. कुछ outsource नहीं हो रहा है and उनके पास पूरा R&D quality and process control है. The second thing is the strong 150 plus distributor supplier network that they have, which is really hard for any other firm to replicate in a short horizon. In 150 में से तो 80% इनके साथ 20 plus years के relationships में है. And finally, any pharma related product, tools or service have an inherent requirement for licenses. This firm has the license to serve in the largest cell culture market, which is the largest and the fastest growing, giving it enough headroom to win in the market. From here, let's look at, we have been talking about reusable, consumable, plastic, sab to bola hai, but what is the products that we are talking about truly? First is the consumables. That is one time or the limited use items that needs to be replaced. So petri dish हो गया. दूसरा है reusables. So products that are repeatedly used and it is a necessity for a lab, like beaker हो गए, measuring cylinder हो गए. And finally, they also manufacture machines like the vortex shakers and the centrifuge machines which are there. So they are also gaining in prominence. From a key customer segment, like the purchasers that we talked about in the industry section, some of the big buyers for them are Dr. Reddy or the diagnostic firm like Lalpath Labs and a lot of export partners that are right now working with them. From here, if we look at, the business strategy of this company, the firm seems to be very ambitious and has created a clear vision of the future. With its new license acquired in cell culture, it is planning to expand its current portfolio and take the brand to robotic consumables. It is planning to double and actually on the path of doubling the capacity with the new introduction of the manufacturing facilities, including the new in-house sterilization facility which is there. There is a plan to take this brand to 120 countries in the next 5 to 10 years. In both the white label space as well as its own branded space. And finally, the firm has doubled down on cost saving and efficiency improvement processes. It has spent heavily to improve worker productivity through automation. I think so that's the key vision that the company has right now. And when you look at the news, so the news has to correspond to the strategy or the vision that it has created and which it is doing right now. If you look at the three major areas that Tarsons is making moves in the market, they have two major plants जिनका completion is around 2024-2025. जिसके बाद the production capacity itself will double. इसमें और एक फायदा है that the Amta plant which is being constructed in Gujarat is outside the West Bengal region where majority of its plants are right now. So any kind of political or civic disruption that can happen, it's getting de-risked there. The second one is Tarsons acquired a $15 million 4-decade-old family business in Germany called NERB. Now NERB offers a comprehensive line of products like pipette, petri dish, tubes, which are all in line with Tarsons business, but also opens it to swabs, which will open a new product line. Third, Tarsons is establishing a subsidiary in Singapore, which is going to help it drive the international investments. So this will also allow a complete subsidiary to focus on these acquisitions in the future because it needs to reach that 120 countries goal. I think this gives us a good understanding of what the company stands for today. Now let's look at some of the financials. Numbers don't lie. But before we go there, आपने काफ़ी सारे stock analysis videos देखे होंगे, but very few go into this kind of depth like we are doing today. In fact, when we get into the valuation section, you will actually see numbers from my own model which I've been using to invest. So please go like the video agar you haven't already, and do subscribe because will be launching a new company analysis every 3 days. We have over 2000 stocks and only 365 days. So content to काफी आने वाला है, and your like and your subscribe will keep me motivated to produce more such videos. So some typing and quick search later. Now, if I look at the financials, Tarsons grew by 12.2% CAGR between 2019 and 2023, resulting in the revenue of $2.8 billion. However, last 1 year was tough across the industry, which declined by 15% due to high product inventory with customers. However, Tarsons only declined by 5.8% or 6%, somewhere between that in the last year, and actually even managed to gain more market share. So that's something that it has done good. Historically, Tarsons has maintained a robust gross margin of 77% and an EBITDA margin of 46%. However, it has declined by 200 to 500 basis points this year due to the additional cost which is incurring from the new plant constructions. And finally, its net income margin, that is the profitability, stands at 30%, which while it is lower, than the last year, which was at 34%, ये इनके competitors like Thermo Fisher and Eppendorf से काफ़ी ज़्यादा हैं, which are only at 14 to 15%. PAT growth, in fact, has outpaced revenue growth due to the improved product mix, rising share of sterilized products, operating efficiencies that we talked about in the automation space, and the improved pricing that it has right now. From here, if we look at some of the operational elements, on the operational front, operating cash flow has fallen down by 10%. Management ने बोला है कि यार this is due to the high internal inventory levels because of the new products which are being launched. The capex also, the capital expenditure is also very high because there are these 2 ongoing plant establishment projects, and there has been an increased cost of both equipment and construction in these 2 facilities. This means that the firm is going to have negative cash flow because of this high capital expenditure which is there. Negative cash flow, the negative free cash flow is a function of high capital expenditure, and once these plants come operational, the negative cash flow is anticipated to become positive in another 2 years. Now from here, if you look at if you remember the high capex, it also means that the return on equity or the return on capital and all the other associated ratios, they will remain understated. So if you ask me, I'm expecting a significant improvement in its ROCE or ROE once the company ramps up its capabilities, its capacities, and also the entire plants are constructed by 2025. It has a really low debt with a very high interest coverage, which means वो अपने लोन खुद से चुका सकता है. The debt to equity ratio is also very low, which means any future debt for any kind of investment can be sourced from equity rather than going to an external source. Company traditionally भी काफी reinvest करता है, which means it's a really good indication that the firm is seeing a good growth opportunity in the market. Now, if you were to look at the equity research analysts, the folks who spend time understanding the market, they are predicting the Tarsons to actually grow at a median growth of 26% and EBITDA growth of 29%, PAT growth of 32%. It's much higher than what it is right now. So profitability also, they are taking it to 32%. That's the PAT, right? As capital expenditure reduces, analysts are also anticipating the ratios to improve as efficiency improve. This is exactly what I was saying in the last section where we were looking at the low ratios at the moment right now. These analysts are also very bullish on the growth of the stock share. The share price, 40% growth in 1 year. Reasons explained by them was the increasing addressable market, improvement in the market share, and the new product launches which are happening. So this is why the market itself is very bullish, or the people who are projecting the market are very bullish about Tarsons. Finally, in terms of the shareholders, the holding pattern is actually very stable. There was no insider buying or selling of any additional shares in the market. The reason that we need to look at it is because if the insiders or the management is selling shares, it usually gives an indication that there is some problem that it is anticipating to happen in the future. So no issues like these are happening at the moment. Now, when you look at the risk, any great investment will have some noteworthy risk, and that is true for Tarsons also. Any more slowdown in the life science industry can result in subdued demand for the plastic labware products. In the domain of PCR cell culture, which is the largest market, there are already established players. So there could be a very strong fight for the market share, which can happen. In India, Tarsons' top 10 distributors account for 56% of all domestic sales, which means a loss of any distributor can impact the business significantly. And finally, we talked about this before, majority of its manufacturing facilities is in a single geography, which exposes the company to any state-specific risk which can adversely impact company operations. But this, as I said, any investment will come with its own set of risks. And finally, the most awaited section, or at least what I consider the most important for me, is the valuation. Is it really worth it? So what I've done is, for simplicity, I took all the financial numbers and ran it through the valuation model that I've created over time. And what you're seeing right now in the equity research world is called a football field. अगर आप वो equity research के targets देखें, so their low is 511 and they're going as high as 900. So the median stands around 780, which is what the 40% upside that they're claiming. So look at the, you can look at the reports from Ambit Capital, Edelweiss, which are covering Tarsons, and you'll see, they're all very bullish about the stock. When I ran the relative valuation and looked for trading comparables, I used Thermo Fisher, Corning, Eppendorf, Syngene, Water Corporation, and Polymedicure as some of my comparable companies. While the thumb rule, and never forget, is to do comparison between your in-market comparables only, that is Indian market companies only. But जैसे हमने पहले कहा था that we don't have a really good Indian comparable stock, so we had to go international. So in terms of equity research targets and the trading comparables, you'll see the values of the trading comparable also is somewhere between 450 to 680, 700, that means they are in line with what they are saying from the market perspective. I'll also add that the stock is trading at 33 times its price to earning ratio based on the current earnings. But remember, it's only 24 times based on 2026 earnings, which is also at a discount. So actually what the projected growth looks like, the share is maybe trading much cheaper than what it is right now. However, one red flag that my model did project is when I take the future cash flows and do an intrinsic valuation, the DCF method, which is actually you look at the financials of the company and think about what is going to happen in the future. That is where the problem starts coming in. So with a discounted cost of capital, or the WACC as we call it, at 17.5% and a long-term growth of 6.5%, taking it the GDP growth rate itself, the valuation unfortunately is coming to 130 rupees to 160 rupees, which is thoda concerning. Now I agree that the current cash flow is getting impacted by the high valuation, so cash flow may be understated, but this is the risk. So if you just look at the company financials as of today, remove all the speculations, do some assumptions on the growth rates, it is coming understated. Now with that aspect on valuations, I think we are coming to the end of our entire thought process. Before we go into the final section where we do a summary, अगर आप लोगों को ये अच्छा लगा हो, वीडियो ज़रूर like करना. Do share what other stock you want me to look into. And certainly, someday, if there's a lot of interest in everyone, I'll open actually the financial models and do a live valuation so we can see how the football field comes to the creation. Now, if you look at Tarsons, what I really love is Tarsons has an in-house manufacturing which is really hard to replicate. The European acquisition which has happened is going to continue strengthen distribution and also increase its product line of products which are there. There is new capacity on the card, so remember the revenue can almost increase by 2x because production is also increasing by 2x. And then there is a high growth opportunity into the domestic as well as the international market. What I did not like is there is a high concentration of manufacturing facilities in a single state. But what is more important is that intrinsic valuation is really low. So while the stock is trading at a reasonable valuation multiple, the equity research analysts look bullish. the intrinsic valuation is looking slightly dicey. So if you ask me, if my opinion, there are too many goods right now in Tarsons over the bads. And I do believe that the bullish claims that the equity research analysts have seem to be justified. So if I were to think of the strategy, it would be around waiting for some market correction to happen and then start accumulating stock for the upcoming earnings cycle. But I do need to give that disclaimer that you will have to do your own analysis on the Tarsons product. I hope this is a great starting point that you have to as you think about investing in the share. Do like the video. Please drop in a comment if you really like something or anything you want me to change. आपके comments काफी valuable रहेंगे as I continue to build the channel. Do subscribe if you haven't already, because it will help me, create new videos, and do share it with some of the like-minded investors in the market. However, as I said earlier, please do your own research too, and let me know in the comments about what you feel about Tarsons. Thank you for your time today.